that summary before the questions rather than after. So.
Okay, now let's see if we can find our presentation.
All right, where are we going to be looking for that?
If it's not loaded, are we logged on to the Podium anywhere?
Well, if you just go back to where we were, if you just press the arrow key, you should go to Events.
Yep. Oh, excellent. Which version is it? Oh, it should be the latest one because the Moodle Podium is in white. So,
Okay.
that's good.
And which thing means show the whole, because we've still got the rest of the screen up there. Do we go into slide mode?
Yeah, we were trying to work that out before. I don't think we cracked that one before.
What application is this?
Good question. I just turned up and it was on, so it was like...
So that's like a whiteboard function.
Yeah, it's not like a normal PowerPoint on the bottom.
So if you find the program online, it will give you a link directly into the room.
Minus this down, please.
Yeah.
And go to, and minus that as well, whatever that is. Go to Chrome, Google Chrome. Shane, we haven't got a presenter though.
We're just going to go back onto the program and click the link into the room, and then I can promote them to moderator.
Yeah, it should be okay.
No, you're already logged in as me, so just use that.
Just use
and
that.
then just click through the slides there.
You present.
Oh, I'm already a moderator, so
that's all right.
you can just click through here like that.
Do we have some way to make just the whole presentation bigger?
So what we can do, I'll get rid of the sidebar. So I can't zoom in much more than that.
No, that should be okay.
That's why we've sort of positioned, tried to move the seats up the front a little bit. So you've got the mic, is that flashing?
We haven't unmuted it yet. It hasn't started yet.
Yeah, so we're muted right now. Yep.
Let me just click talk. Okay, do you want to unmute it?
Okay.
Sound's coming through.
Testing.
Okay, you can mute it again.
Yeah, okay, muted again.
Alright, we're good to go.
Excellent.
So who's advancing the slides?
Yeah, I'll go
So
first.
if there's two presenting,
Yeah,
just...
I will swap. Yeah, I'll swap it.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I'll just quickly bring it to order and then we'll crack on. Are you guys ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gents. We'll now run on with the third session this afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Sherry Lowe and Jenny Edwards from ANU, who will be talking about Turnitin implementation at ANU. For those new people into this session, if you do have a mobile phone, can I just ask you to turn it silent or turn it off? And without further ado, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming to our session this afternoon. My name is Sherry Lowe, and that's Jenny Edwards.
Recording started.
All right, I'll start again. So my name is Sherry Lowe. That's my colleague, Jenny Edwards. We both work in the ANU Online team. We're the central team supporting Moodle and the related services. So our topic today is Turnitin. You're probably familiar with Turnitin as a text matching service for student assignments. And today we're going to talk about our implementation approach, how we introduce Turnitin to our academics and students, including our key messages, the reasons behind our choices and our customizations, and how Turnitin looks in the ANU Moodle. Okay, so just to give you a bit of context, Turnitin is part of the ANU Online program work. ANU Online is an initiative of the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic. Part of our focus is to deliver enterprise-wide projects to enhance teaching and learning. And you can see on the slide, we have a number of projects lying ahead of us. So we did a Moodle 2.5 upgrade last year. And we have an introduction of software to help with the ethical treatment of academic materials, which is Turnitin. We are looking at replacing our current in-house lecture recording system. So that's Echo 360. We are reviewing the content repository of educational materials, so that's Equila. And further along, we'll be looking at live learning and teaching collaboration. learning analytics, and community creation. And at the bottom, you can see, I know it's very tiny text, we have 3 phases. Phase 1 is analysis and investigation. Phase 2 is limited release pilots. And phase 3 is enterprise release. Okay, so we'll look at our Turnitin approach. Like we mentioned, it's a 3-phase approach. In phase 1, that's semester 2 last year, we were trying to figure out our configuration. We consulted extensively with our legal office. They had a lot of legal advice that would like us to consider. We also consulted widely with our stakeholders, including student associations and the faculties. We then developed our customizations and default settings based on this information. In phase 2, which is semester 1 this year, we had a small-scale pilot with our target courses in each faculty. That helped us to test the business process and confirm the appropriate supporting materials for our community. In phase 3, which is this semester, we have gone enterprise-wide implementation. That means Turnitin is now available to all academics in our ANU Moodle. We also provide guidance and supporting materials and incorporate lessons learned from our pilot courses. We're also in the process of decommission native use of Turnitin. That's because some areas on campus in ANU have direct access to Turnitin.com before. So we're in the process of decommissioning those access. Okay, moving forward, what is Turnitin? The way we get Turnitin across to our academics is that it has 2 major components. One is text matching tool, which is called Originality Report in Turnitin. The other part is online marking, which is called Grade Mark in Turnitin. And because those are quite independent functionalities, so academics can choose to use one or the other. They don't have to use both. So whatever is more appealing to them, they can use that one. The last part we mentioned to our academics, like we talked about earlier, because we have some users that had direct access to Turnitin.com before. So we try to get across that it is not integrated with our Moodle. You're not going through Turnitin.com directly anymore. So that means the benefits of Turnitin in our ANU environment is that it greatly reduced administration because of integration with Moodle Turnitin. They don't have to do separate account setup or password distribution. The online marking facility is also made available through Grade Mark. It is a quite user-friendly functionality and also time saver because academics can now build their own personal comment banks and reuse their comments. The transparency for students is that they are now able to view their originality reports before they submit their assignments are marked. Because once they review the originality report, they can review the text matches and revise and resubmit before their work is being marked. Now, our application is quite flexible. By that we mean the use of Turnitin is optional. Academics can choose to use Turnitin, but they can still use a standard Moodle assignment. Student originality reports are optional. Our default is to allow students to view their originality report multiple times, but the academics can choose to change that setting. The resubmission permissions, the default is to allow them to resubmit, but that can also be changed. The use of Grade Mark, like we mentioned, that's online marking facility, so academics can try to do the online marking if they want to. Lastly, during our project phase, we have tried really hard to make sure we are complying with the legal office to minimize the risk to ANU and our students. That included a number of things. To comply with the Australian Privacy Act and the cross-border data protection, because Turnitin is a third-party service in the US, we obfuscated our usernames or de-identify our usernames in the ANU Turnitin environment. The other thing we have to do is because the students need to agree to the end user's license agreement directly with Turnitin, students are allowed to opt out of Turnitin assignments if they don't want to accept that license. So we developed an opt-out process. We also disable the functions for the academics to submit on behalf of the students in Turnitin assignments. For the same reason, because the end user license agreement. If students do not accept that, then academics do not have the option to actually accept that license on the student's behalf. And the very last part is that we develop an assignment submission statement that's acceptable to all our faculties. Now that's quite an achievement. So that's including our standard Moodle assignment activity with an extra clause within our Turnitin assignment. So that's all the legal advice that we were trying to take on board while we did our implementation. Now, just a few key messages. Again, the things we try to get across to our academics is that Turnitin can be used to support academic integrity of student work. By that, we mean it is a learning and an education tool, not a punitive tool. We don't think Turnitin itself is a plagiarism detection tool. It can speed up the screening process for the academics, but once they see some red flags, they still need to go through the assignment and the text matches and make sure and make their own judgment on the matches. The use of Turnitin is optional for both academics and students, like we mentioned. The Turnitin assignment is a preferred option for the academics to use as a type of assignment, but they don't have to. They can use the standard Moodle one. Now, if the academics choose to use Turnitin assignment, students have the option to opt out, like we mentioned. Now, if students choose not to use Turnitin, they need to discuss with their academics ahead of time how they can submit their assignment through the standard Moodle assignment or through hard copies. We also strongly recommend that the academics give students a time frame to discuss when can they opt out. For example, say by week 3, so this, they don't have students coming up to them to the due date the day before their assignment due date. Now, before our enterprise release, we developed a number of resources for staff and students. One of the main one is that how to interpret originality report. We keep trying to tell our academics that there's no magic number. It's not the number of the matches that matters, it's the nature of the matches. So the academics should still read through the highlight matches and determine if they are properly cited. The number itself, we think it's quite meaningless without interpretation, so that's why it's very important for both academics and students to learn how to interpret the originality report. Okay, and then we also have a few other resources, PowerPoint slides for lectures in the first class, and some suggested wording they can put in their course news forum if they want to use Turnitin, and also the Turnitin assignment description, and FAQ videos and some known issues. So if you want to take a look, that's our website. And I'm going to hand over to Jenny. Yeah, it's on. I didn't mute it. Oh, no. Sorry, no.
Okay, sorry about that little technical delay. Can I ask, is there anyone here who really hasn't seen Turnitin? Oh, good, excellent. Those of you who've seen it, how many of you are familiar with it in its native mode, so going to turnitin.com and using it there? Yep. And all the fun of setting up your classes and your usernames? Yep. And who has actually seen it integrated within Moodle? And who's seen the integration direct into the assignment activity? Yep, okay. So at ANU we have the other option, which is called Moodle Direct, and it means that, sorry, it's called Turnitin Direct. No, it's the Moodle Direct integration of Turnitin. And it means that it comes in as a separate activity. So when our lecturers go to use Turnitin, they begin by saying add an activity or resource, and choose the Turnitin assignment here. We chose this because of the need to make the modifications that we did. So this allowed us to do the username obfuscation and also to prevent academics from submitting on behalf of students, because we really need the students to have a look at that end user license agreement and click that. If we like to move along, we'll have a quick look at what the academics actually see when they start using it. So this is actually the lower part of the add an activity dialog box. At the top, what they'll see that's different from a normal assignment is that for a start, they can add up to 5 parts, which more traditionally you might actually do with 5 different copies of the assignment activity. And secondly, there's no dates up the start. But down the bottom of the dialogue, you see some of the choices that we've made. So we recommend allow late submissions. A lot of new lecturers go, well, I don't want late submissions. But at 5 minutes past submission time, they suddenly realise they did really want to allow late submissions. The late submissions come in coloured in red, so the academic can then make a judgment about, actually that 5 minutes is only a difference in what time the computer thinks it is, or it's 3 days late, I'm going to take some action on this. Our report generation speed, by default, you can see we set generate reports immediately. Now, immediately is not really immediate. Students will usually see a report within about 10 minutes, but they'll only get one report in 24-hour period. So if a student submits version A, gets a report back, goes, oh, I've got some things to change, submits version B, then goes, oops, there's a typo, submits version C, D, E. 24 hours after they submitted version A, they'll get a report back on version E. Okay? So this is actually a functionality of Turnitin because they're preventing students from what they call gaming the system. So you can't submit your report, go, oh, 3 changes, change those, submit it again. Oh, no, need to change another couple of words, submit it again, and use Turnitin to really just mindlessly remove all the any matches from your assignment. Now, for any genuine assignment, the store of student papers is a standard repository, but something we need to be really careful with is for any testing or training that we're doing, we have to make sure that we use no repository, because anything you put up there is there forever. Okay? So one of the really beautiful artifacts that we've got is this Zomia essay written by one of our colleagues, and it's a really valuable tool because it looks like a real essay and it's got really good examples of what's appropriate copying and what's inappropriate copying. And if we ever submit it to the standard repository, it will come in all completely red and it won't be a useful teaching tool anymore. So that's something to keep an eye on. These next few things we set this way. Yes, we check against the internet. Yes, we check against journals. We do check the bibliography. Apparently there's a trick you can do where you can write bibliography in white text on a white background and put the whole of your essay underneath that. And if this is set to no, don't check that, like yes, exclude the bibliography, then the whole essay is not checked and you get a 0% originality report. So we encourage, yes, do check the bibliography, do check the quoted material, and I think the default small matches is 3 words. Now these 3 items down the bottom, after you've actually started receiving some assignments, you can't change them anymore for the assignment as a whole, so they become locked. But when you're using the originality reports, there's a little filter option where for any of these in particular, for a single assignment, you can go in and change them. So if you have an assignment that's showing up like 70% check, 70% match rate, and it's because there's lots of these little 3-word matches which really aren't matches, they're just common use of language, then you might like to go in and change this up to 4 words, for instance. Moving right along. So this is the next dialogue that the lecturers see, and this is where the dates come in. And the next new thing that they need to learn is that we've actually got 3 dates now, whereas we're more familiar with just having, a due date and an end date. Start date, obviously, is when the students can begin submitting. Due date is the date that the assignment's due. Now, lecturers who haven't submitted at the due date can still submit. Okay? Did I say lecturers? Students who haven't submitted by the due date can still submit. Students who have already submitted can resubmit up until the due date. So after the due date, students can no longer submit. And on the post date, the integration actually makes the grade book in Moodle visible. Okay, so every time a grade or anything is entered into Turnitin, it's copied back to the grade book. And generally speaking, the grade book is hidden. But when we hit the post date, the grade book is automatically revealed. So it's something that lecturers need to know because they're often not familiar with it. They expect to have manual control of that. So we need to point that out. Sorry, can we just go back just 1 second? In a more standard implementation of Turnitin integration, there'd be another tab just up here where the lecturers would see submit on behalf of. So that's one of the things that we've needed to do, is our legal advice has been we need to remove that to force the students to agree to the licence agreement. We can't have the lecturers agreeing to that on their behalf. So this is what a lecturer will see when they've received a few assignments. I don't know if you can see it from here. These are our obfuscated Turnitin identifiers. So we can see the student's name here, which you can't really tell there because this is a training account. We've got all training names. But normally we would expect to see a U followed by 7 digits for the student number here, but we've got this changed to this, 12 or 16 digit code, which cannot easily be traced back to a student, although the computers can trace it back just fine. Looking at an originality report, so Sherry was saying a common initial assumption is that we really want to get this number down to 0%. A good essay with a bibliography, if you're checking the bibliography, if you've got a reference bibliography, you're expecting to see 10, 15, even 30% there, depending on the nature of the essay. So as Sherry was saying, we really need to get people to look at that. But, you know, we've seen all the time on Facebook and things that students are really frustrated because they can't get down to that 0%. If people say to me, so what number do I need to get down to? I say, well, anything over about 10% is probably okay. In fact, a matching rate of 0% is probably suspicious. If you get your match right down to 0%, then you really want that to be ringing alarm bells and figure out what they've done to get it there. Something that we hear students do is, in order to make something different, they'll copy the text they want out of Wikipedia, stick it into Google Translate, translate it into, who knows, Chinese or Portuguese or whatever, copy that and translate it back to English, and then it'll be different and they'll put it in and they won't get so much of a match. So, I mean, at that point, you're not encouraging learning. You're just, you know, gaming the system. And it's something that we really need to get students' focus away from. So a big part of our effort has been to communicate that, you know, 15% or so is a really, really good matching rate. You can, sorry, I was just going to say, you can see some other things here. There's a lot of value in the information here. It tells us where things have been quoted from. We can click links over here. If you see that something's been quoted, so maybe you think a student might have bought an essay and you want to know where it's come from or that sort of thing, you can follow up the information over here as to where this information's come from. Now, one of the things that has really delighted our lecturers has been the use of grade mark. This actually gives us a genuine online marking option. For years, lecturers have been, or you know, we've been saying lecturers should start doing online marking, but it's been too clunky. There's been too many minutes lost in downloading and marking and re-uploading and all the rest of it, whereas grade mark actually gives them an efficient process that they can use to do that. You'll see in a minute we've got a picture of the grade mark. You can drag and drop comments into place. So what might take a lecturer normally 2 minutes to write out, you know, check your punctuation or whatever, they can do just with a point and click. There are good rubrics available within grade mark. And again, the rubrics can be very well developed and quite deep. So a lecturer with just a few clicks can actually give students really rich feedback. And in some of our colleges, the lecturers have been really, really enthusiastic about adopting this because, you know, with just the 20 minutes that they might normally use to mark an essay, they can give students what might otherwise have taken sort of 2 hours or whatever to craft as feedback. So they're really happy about that. People are leaving, so we'll move right along. One of the real points of value add that I expect our lecturers to take up is in developing common or, you know, good sets of grade marks that they can use. So these commonly used ones just say things like improper citation. That's the short title for the grade mark. You pop that in and it'll give you a little sentence saying this is an improper citation for these reasons or whatever. But within a particular assignment, often you'll have a concept that's been difficult to teach or that sort of thing, and so you'll have a paragraph that you want to pop in saying, ah, yes, you've made that common error. So people can develop these rich sets of commonly used grade marks to share and also develop rich rubrics. I should say initially we weren't going to introduce grade mark, we were just going to take things one step at a time, but you know, the community said they wanted grade mark and they've been really, really happy that we put it in, so that works well. I should point out, when a student looks at this online, they'll see, you know, little blue dots sitting here and there that they can click on to find out what's the lecturer trying to say about this part of my essay. But they can also download a PDF for printing, and that gives them a neat little summary page at the end with all the grade marks correlated there. And so finally, this is just to point out, these do automatically come into the Moodle gradebook. There's no transferring of marks or anything required. These three are ones that will have passed their post date, and this will be one that's waiting for its post date, and the grades come in there. So some of the logistics issues that we've struck is that our Moodle tells people that they have a 2 gigabyte upload limit, which might be a bit generous, but in practice there's a 20 megabyte upload limit on Turnitin. Now, given Turnitin's really only interested in the text, 20 megabytes is a lot of text. That's like 20,000 pages of text. But if a student's been putting a lot of images and things in, occasionally they might go over that limit. So we might need to help a student to produce a smaller version of their essay to submit. The recent upgrades in Moodle introduced some very nice assignment extension management and that sort of thing, and that hasn't been re-implemented in Turnitin. So lecturers have had to think about, well, what am I going to do if I give a student an extension? Are they going to still be able to actually submit, or will we be past the due date by that point? Similarly, we don't have as much support as we would like for group work. Lecturers, again, have had to think, well, while that's been built nicely into Moodle these days, lecturers have had to rethink how to do that with Turnitin. Large classes with multiple graders present a bit of a problem. Turnitin pretty much assumes that there'll just be the one grader. So while we can manage the multiple graders using groups in the Moodle assignment, within Turnitin we need to rethink how to do that. Offline marking. Turnitin's pretty good for offline marking, but Turnitin with obfuscated usernames is a bit awkward for offline marking because you've got to match up that 16-character code to find who to give the grade to after you've printed out and put in. We found one way around that is there's quite a good integration with iPads. So some people, instead of printing everything out, have been able to mark on iPads when they thought they needed to print things out. And the de-identified marking. Oddly enough, the obfuscation actually makes de-identified marking a little bit more difficult than it was. So just in summary, before we go to questions, our philosophy in introducing Turnitin has been to support the academic integrity of student work. So we've consulted with the students. We've made it clear to them we're not bringing this in to be a punitive plagiarism detection device. We've brought it in to actually help them learn how to cite and academic materials appropriately and produce their own academic work. Our customentations and implementation choices are designed around protecting the student identity and the student intellectual property, and also providing the flexibility to support the existing teaching practices within the ANU. So we've been able to implement it fairly smoothly without a huge disruption to the teaching practices there. And finally, we're looking at upgrading to Moodle Direct version 2. We're currently using version 1, but because we've had to customise it, it's going to be quite some work to upgrade to version 2. So I think we have 1.5 minutes left. Any questions? Yes.